This review of the E6 engine games may contain spoilers and coarse language. If neither of those bother you, then have fun watching this review. The Ys games are a series of games I never, ever thought that I'd get into. Because of raunchy assumptions, I assumed it was just a generic JRPG series filled with boring plots, terrible pacing, good combat, but random encounters. You know, like every other JRPG. But Ys is different. For one, it's an action RPG series. And two, it's a series that evolved as it progressed, instead of being the same garbage over and over. So with one noticeable swoosh, I saw that 3 Ys games use the exact same game engine. What this did is it made games that are very similar to compare one another to, and at the same time, very easy to talk about. So with that in mind, we're going to be looking at Ys 6, the Ark of Napishtim. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay. Ys, the Oath in Felghana, a remake of the 3rd Ys game, and Ys Origin, a prequel to all of the Ys games. While all of these games are very fantastic in their own rights, what we'll do is see how this series may have gotten better or worse, from start to finish. Also, I really don't care if you don't like I'm going to be using this much music, because screw you, the Ys games, great music. So imagine yourself in Falcom's shoes. You haven't made a game in a series for 8 years. What do? Do you go back to the originals? Make something new? Well, make something new is something Falcom decided to do. And they made sure to hell and back that Ys 6 definitely worked. Napishtim is the first Ys game in 8 years, and introduced a new, much more polished combat system. The main character, Adel, can do a 3-hit combo, an up slash, down pound, and a difficult-to-pull-off dash jump. Seriously, what? Why? Instead of traditional Ys means of having 6 weapons and 6 armor sets, Adel only has 3 swords at his disposal. A wind one, which lets Adel create tornadoes if properly timed, a fire sword, which allows Adel to charge his attacks, and an electric one, which allows Adel to become a piercing spear if the attack button is mashed enough times. Adel still does get equipment to gather, such as armor and shields. He either finds them lying around or he has to buy them. Adel can also equip a quick item to access at any time, such as a healing item or a cure status. There are also tons of accessories that Adel can find lying around, which boost certain aspects or make him immune to status conditions. You can also find empty space. Oh. Each sword also has magic, allowing Adel to do 3 different moves depending on the sword that's equipped. They don't charge, however, unless Adel uses them or they're just equipped. You also have to find an element called Emil in the game, and you can use it to grind your weapons up to the highest level possible, level 11. And no, it's not grinding as in, like, level grinding. No, it's level grinding in the sense that you're taking things to a grindsmith. Fuck you. I hate you. Speaking of levels, however, Ys 6 is almost impossible to level grind in. The dungeons and areas themselves are paced so that if you get to a certain level, you just kinda stop leveling. You level up right when necessary and never really need to go any higher than what the dungeon forces you to be at. The max level in the game is 60, but I've beaten the game at level 50. Every time. Spoke too soon. In Napishtim, there is a road bump around Limewater Caves. This area starts out a bit too hard, and you have to gain around, gosh, maybe 9 levels. And you can get lost in it. Often. Napishtim doesn't exactly have dungeon maps, but at the same time, it doesn't really need them. Limewater Cave is a little interesting, but it's not bad. It's just different, and once you get over that speed bump, smooth sailing. Somewhat literally. That's a spoiler. Not gonna lie, dungeons in Napishtim are one of my favorite parts about this game. Because Falcom had a whole 3rd dimension added to their disposal, they played around and got some very interesting level designs to come out of it. You have vertical levels like the Mountain Zone, and you have exploration-based ones like Limewater Cave. It's a nice mix that creates a lot of cool, memorable dungeons, and overall, I'd say it pays off in the end. Another section that always continues to surprise me are the boss battles. This game has such cool boss battles. Despite a lot of them having similar tactics, it's just so fun to fight these guys. And it's even better when you get to figure out how to beat them. The bosses in this game are hard, and when you die at them, you can retry right at the boss fight. But that only makes it even better, because then you have to really think on your toes on how to beat these guys. The story in Napishtim is one that's pretty lighthearted. It never gets too adult or too emotional. In fact, the dialogue at worst shows kidnapping of a bunch of people and forcing slavery and, you know, not that bad. But really, the game does kind of have a light spirit to it, and it makes it feel like a little bit more upbeat over Adel's other adventures. In fact, the entire game, only one person dies, and he's a bad guy. The lighthearted and comical tone is a welcomed addition, and there are a few instances where the lightly coded seriousness is just kind of scattered in, like racism. Plus, you have other goofy shit too, like Adel's rival, Gaius, whose edge can cut through steel, and near the end of the game, became one of my favorite characters. There's also a lot of references to previous Ys games in it, such as the familiar face from Darm Tower in Ys 1, and it's all tightly knitted into a fan service sandwich. You eat knittings, okay? I'm not changing that. Graphics, though, not much to shine about. A lot of the locations are varied in color and very pretty to look at, and you can recognize an area just by its color palette. However, due to the year that it came out, there's not really much to say about its models and textures. It's kinda old. But its art style itself is still very appealing to look at. The small details such as clouds cascading across the canvas are really nice, of course. It is a staple to Ys games to have that anyway. I'm also a fan of the use of sprites. In Ys 6, the sprites behave like they would in Doom, with 8 directional axes and rotation for said sprites. It's a style that's not really seen in video games anymore, and with Napishtim's fixed camera, I say it adds to the charm. The sprite animations are also very fun to look at, with Adel's seriously overdramatic running animation in towns being my favorite. This fucker swings his arms around like he's got weights on. So when it comes to sound, the music for this game, it's okay. Except everything I just said is bullshit, this game has great music. Everything about all of the themes in this game are just so incredible. I love hearing tons of songs in this game. I love everything about these. They're just so good. The sound effects are also well implemented. They never are too much, but none of them are annoying and are satisfying to hear. Falcom also plays a bit with footstep noises, but overall, they don't do anything really spectacular because it doesn't really need to. So when you beat Ys 6, what do you get? Well, you get more difficulties to play with. You get to play with hard mode so that you get special enemies that you have to kill with specific swords, and at the same time, you also get enemies that can land critical hits on you. In Nightmare mode, let's just say, even before you get some of the swords, the enemies are still colored so that you can't kill them. Nice. What's really great about this is that the difficulty modes offer something different. They're not like, their enemies hit harder, okay, hard mode, done. No, they offer gameplay changes, different boss battles, everything that's just good about a difficulty. And you know what else you get for beating this game? You get boss time attack mode. And, yeah, that's about it. But it's boss time attack mode, it's so cool! So with the success of Ys came a new game in the series, a remake. In between a break from Falcom remaking Ys 1 and 2 for the 28th time, someone over there suggested a bright idea. Why don't we remake the Ys game that nobody liked? You know, Ys 3. To this day, that man has certainly been promoted, with Ys the Oath in Felghana arriving in 2005. Oath in Felghana is a full-fledged and entirely different remake from Ys 3, Wanderers from Ys. Ulth and Felghana offers some of the greatest and best changes to the E6 engine, and objectively improving upon its predecessor. Adel's combat almost remains the same. Remember that dash jump that was bullshitly hard to pull off in E6? Now it's the default air move when moving. When standing still, you are still able to do the butterfly twirl. So no more hopping around like a pretty adventurer. Nuh-uh. Adel's combat also improves greatly. He's been upgraded to a 6-hit combo this time around, and a new boosted feature. This boosted feature doubles Adel's defense, increases his magic power, and makes him attack way harder and faster. It's almost a sin to not have this on when you get it. Holy shit! Adel can defeat enemies to release potions that boost certain aspects, such as strength, defense, and speed. Also, depending on how many hits Adel gets in a row, he can gain double the experience points from enemies. This new arcade-like potion system allows to keep the game flowing, and if you've got some game, you'll get some game back. Whatever that means. Also, in a seemingly strange decision, Falcom has decided to get rid of items that you can hold on to. This time what happens now is that when Adel finds a health item, he instantly picks it up. So now you don't have to go to your menu and select it this time. Boom, it's right there. That does mean that boss battles do become a little bit harder, but that's a sacrifice to take if the game becomes much faster and a lot less tedious. Adel's new 3 sets of magic come into play too. Adel has fire magic, which when charged releases a fireball of pure pain, wind magic, which allows Adel to glide through the air, and earth magic, which allows Adel to ram into enemies and walls. Ys 3 is the only game in the Ys series to be 2D, in the sense of it being a side-scrolling game, not overhead view. With this, Ys 3 had a lot more platforming screwed into it. So what did Falcom do with Felghana, a game that's a 3D overhead game? Why, they gave Adel a double jump, gave him a dash move, planted some secrets, and made platforming a prime focus in Felghana. This right here emphasizes that Falcom wanted to stay as true as they could to the original Ys 3. But not only that, the platforming sections, while some are 2D, others later become 3D, adding a whole new layer that Falcom never touched, and it's good. The dungeon design in Felghana is just so outlandishly great. The amount of cool and distinct platforming sections, along with regular action sequences, really puts you in a good mood, and nothing ever comes off as sour or bad. And its dungeons are some of the tightest and possibly well-made action-adventure areas in a video game ever. More stuff added to Felghana is a warp checkpoint system. Yeah, in E6, you did all of your walking, a to and a fro. This changes. This lets you backtrack easily to find certain points in the game, to access a lot of goodie rooms and find some neat stuff in the process, which is also teased as you first play an area. Gone, however, are the elemental swords, instead replaced with a similar system to the previous Ys games, where you find a new set of armor and swords with you. But Felghana takes it a step further. Finding the strengthening system in E6 helpful, you can now grind your weapons and armor 2 levels higher to do more damage or give you more defense. With the warp system in hand, if you play your cards right, you can make Felghana a very smooth ride. Also gone are accessories. Well, kinda. Adel can only hold on to 1 accessory at a time, but has a total of 6 that are selectable. Each of them have a use throughout the entirety of the game, and you'll be switching to them quite a few times actually. But for some reason, you can skip a few of the accessories, like I did on my first playthrough. Seriously, the Nightfire gem! Never even got it! Speaking of that, Felghana has no road bumps. Nothing ever comes off as a difficulty spike or as too easy or too hard. It's just a nice mesh of good. The pacing is great, everything plays well, nothing I can really see as bad comes from this game. Story-wise, Felghana is, miles darker. There's death, there's betrayal, there's sacrifice, there's subjects brought up that can be a bit unpleasant to other people, like genocide. Crazy turn coming from Ys 6. But it does work well, and it is led into nicely. And I have to admit, I didn't see some of the twists coming in it, which I won't spoil because fuck you. Play this game. Graphically, about the same fidelity as Ys 6. However, there is one really nice addition. When equipped with a full set of armor, Adel's entire armor changes to match the whole set. If you just have 2/3, well, you just become the default Adel. Woohoo. So when we talk about the sound in an Ys game, let's think about the music here for a minute. don't care what you say, this is probably some of the hypest stuff I've ever heard. Ever! Well, granted, this is my favorite song in all of Ys, but still, good stuff. The sound effects are pretty good. There's nothing in particular that's changed, but now Adol has different sword swooses instead of just the same sound effect. Voice acting can be patched into the PC version and is defaulted to on the PSP version, but since I got the PC, I don't have time to patch and criticize it, so yeah! So with a bold leap of faith and someone's promotion, Falcom has successfully made people like Ys 3. And with that came another idea. Someone over there suggested that they're not really ready to make Ys 7 yet, and got the idea up of a prequel. That man was also promoted. Enter Ys Origin, a prequel to the entirety of the Ys games. Ys Origin is a prequel to all the games, so Adol is gone. You have 3 entirely different protagonists this time. You have Yunica, Hugo, and Toll. All 3 offer totally different gameplay styles, and just for variation, level design changes too. With Yunica being similar to Adol, Hugo playing like a damn shooting game, and Toll being a much more faster but reckless Adol. So, 2 Adols, and Hugo. Not only that, but the stories are totally different this time around. When Adol spoke in the previous games, he never actually did talk, instead a narrator would speak for him. In Origin, all the characters speak, and doing so creates some different cutscenes. Let me tell you this though, the cutscenes can drag really bad. Sometimes it can take up to 20 minutes to start one of the characters' campaign. That would be Yunica. Oh, by the way, Unica's story's terrible. I actually could not finish the game with her because I hated her story. She's fun to play as, but I really just didn't like her story. But Hugo and Toll, much better. Unica's story is all about her crying over how she has no confidence, and there's a point in the game where you just sit and wait for her to cry. It's terrible! Hugo, however, he's got his shit together. He is so fun to listen to, and he's got some really great moments, both hilarious and sad. Toll is also well written, however he doesn't have as much clever dialogue as Hugo. Instead, his dialogue is a lot more mysterious, and you never really know what's going on in the game until the end with him. Personally, I would say play as Hugo and Toll. Hugo has a really unique and cool gameplay added in, and Toll is both the canon story and also fun to play as well. I'm pretty sure Yunica was added so people had an Adol to play as, and if you don't mind her terrible story, she can be pretty fun to play. So, gameplay changes? Well, everything is still in there, except now levels are a lot more spacious and don't feel as platformy this time around. Along with that, you only get one weapon that you keep upgrading through the entirety of the game. You do find armor lying around, but instead you only need to upgrade it once. Speaking of upgrading, this time you can select perks from a goddess statue, and some of them are stuff you couldn't do in the first place. Like now you can upgrade your character to increase how much currency that they would find. You can also get status resistances and just overall upgrades. But sadly, Origin does take a downfall when it comes to graphics because the entirety of the game is in Darm Tower. It's in a tower. Everything looks like a tower. Everything is a tower! So, it gets old. The music is still fantastic, however I would say it's a little bit of a downgrade because there's not really that many tracks that are extremely memorable right as you hear them. Can you believe I said that? I'm just kidding. This game, great music. Wow. This game series and great music seem to go together like peanut butter and jelly. But then again, this is also Falcom. Every game they make has great music. It's unbelievable. So with all these games, what does that mean? Well, oops, looks like there's something that I totally didn't script that I would forget. In 2015, Ys 6 saw a PC re-release. With that, it brought 2 new features to it. The first being Catastrophe Mode. Catastrophe Mode makes the game play a lot more like it does in Felghana and Origin. So when health is lying on the floor, you take it instead of just saving it in your inventory. The second thing is a warp system, which is really great. It makes the game's pacing so much faster, but there's a problem. You can actually do a sequence break glitch with it. And since the game was already made so that you walk through everything, you actually can skip an entire dungeon that you have to revisit. Yeah, the warp system does take away a little bit from the original experience, but that doesn't mean you have to use it. It's optional. And with that being said, the PC version is pretty much the superior platform of choice, and hopefully that sequence breaking glitch will get patched. Now, as this series improved, there is only 2 things that they never fixed. The first is that these games were originally made for 4:3 resolutions, but you can run the games at 16:9. So then you get a lot of stuff like this. Yeah. And 2, you can never skip cutscenes. You can see why I don't like Unica's story since I'm forced to pay attention to it. Yeah, that is one problem that these games have never fixed. However, the cutscenes aren't really a big problem unless the story sucks, like in Unica's case, or you're replaying the game for the 7th time. So with all that said, what's the winner in this? Which one's the best game of them all? Well, Origin technically does have the best gameplay, but its level design and story kind of become a detriment, so Ulten Felghana would have to be the winner. Of course that doesn't mean the rest are bad, far from it, it just means Ulten Felghana is just that little bit better. But my favorite of all of these is actually Ys 6. 6 has just a lot more charm to it, it's a lot more friendly, it's a lot more colorful, it's a lot more creative, it's just a bit better. And with the soundtrack, that's what really wins me over. Now, I'm just gonna finish this video off just by saying this. Unscripted, I'm telling you that these are some of the best games I've ever played. Seriously, Falcom won me over. These are some excellent, excellent games, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. So what I'd have to say to you is that I recommend you buy these games and play them from start to finish. Oh yeah, also, they're kind of old, so that could happen.